Welcome and thanks for taking the time to join us today. I'm Charlie Imbergamo, Director of Strategic Programs for the Nonprofit Leadership Center. We have a number of our teammates and board members who will be in the session today. So on behalf of all of us, we're delighted to have you with us as we continue our mission to develop and connect nonprofit leaders in this virtual space from far and wide. The event of the pandemic has catalyzed new ways of working for all of us. Some organizations, by their mission and function, have remained totally on the front lines, and some teams have divided up to continue service, and still others have pivoted to 100% remote delivery. With many more Americans vaccinated and organizations grappling with what the way of work is going to look like in the future, this topic seems very timely. Reimagining your workplace in a post-pandemic world. What do we know? What have we learned? What might be next? To recognize and celebrate you and the organizations and the communities that you represent and serve, we'd like to ask you to locate the chat box and to type the name of your organization and location in the chat right now. And as we begin to see the names of organizations popping up in the chat feed, let's take a moment to celebrate the good in our community that's being done through you and your work. And let that goodness sink in for a moment. We're really fortunate to have Andrea Cortissoz with us today as a guest presenter for this webinar. Andrea is the managing partner and co-founder at HR Soul. She's a highly versatile HR business partner and consultant with decades of global, senior level corporate and consulting experience. That includes working with startups, managing business closures, and leading organizations through transformation at every stage of the process, including nonprofits. Andrea's work spans countries, industries, organization size, and complexity. She is dedicated to creating cultures that ignite people with both personal and professional purpose that are engaging for all employees. We met Andrea a little over a year ago and quickly realized that NLC's mission and HR Soul's mission are closely linked. Both of our missions are grounded in developing leaders, the people at the heart and the soul, the life breath of the organizations we serve and the communities we serve. Welcome and thanks, Andrea. Moderating our session today is my teammate and colleague, Karina, NLC's program associate. Karina has been an awesome driving force in helping us to elevate this work and providing an accessible virtual experience for our participants. She's passionate about our work and our commitment to continue to respond during this time and very hopeful for what the future holds for us. She'll take us through some rules of the road for our time together. Without further ado, Karina.
Thank you so much, Charlie. So I'll just go over a few of our Zoom logistics for today's webinar. To minimize background noise and distractions, all lines will be muted for the duration of the webinar. This session is being recorded and will be available on our website in the next few days. You may have noticed that we have live captions enabled, which is a Zoom accessibility feature. If you find them distracting, or if you would like to see them but don't see them yet, you can enable or disable them by going to the bottom of your Zoom screen and clicking on the icon that says CC Live Transcript. Once you click that, click the button that says Disable Auto Transcription or Enable Auto Transcription. We warmly welcome your questions. Please type them in the chat box as they come up for you, and we'll take about 10 minutes at the end of the presentation for Andrea to answer as many as we're able to get to. If you haven't found the chat box yet, go to the settings at the bottom of your Zoom screen and click on chat. And if you haven't already, please share the name of your organization in the chat box. We are so delighted to have Andrea with us today and look forward to a great informative webinar. On to you, Andrea.
Hey, everyone. Hope everybody's great out there today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to be here and to be partnering with NLC and Charlie and Karina and the team This is just such an important, and as Charlie said, a very, very timely topic. It's very challenging for many. You know, we are HR leaders. We are also business leaders ourselves. We struggle with this in our own business, and we are definitely helping other organizations navigate through these critical decisions that they're making when they're reimagining their new world. So a few thoughts before we dive in. Leaders are completely overwhelmed right now. You are not alone out there. We are hearing this everywhere, but it doesn't have to be this way. The past year in the DNA of work has really left a very strong impression on your employees, on you yourselves. You are also employees, and also to the external world. So job seekers, we need to factor that into the equation also, which we'll talk about during the presentation. It really has left this strong impression, and there's no going back. Once they've experienced this, how do we possibly go back to business as usual? So many, from what we're hearing and seeing, don't want business as usual. They don't ever want to see it again. So that's why we're here today, is to start to talk about what can this truly look like for you. So I am very casual in my approach. That is HR Soul's, mission, is to be casual and to be real and to be human. We're all fighting the good fight out there. So I'm so excited to be here today. This matters. And why does this matter for you in this group specifically? Because you are influencing and helping make decisions on the trajectory of your organizations and really how this will affect your people in ways that we have never experienced before, ever. We are in uncharted territory, all of us. You will make or break this for your organization. We always say in our leadership development programs that you are casting a shadow on the organization. So what kind of shadow do you want to be casting in the new world that you're reimagining? And we've really opened Pandora's box here. We have let the genie out of the bottle. So how do we possibly try and put it back? And the answer is we don't. There's a new way, new ways of looking at this going forward. So the question is, how do we do all of this? How do we move forward when people have really seen a different way? So that's really what we're going to be looking at over the next hour. Oops, and I hope everybody can see this okay. So today's takeaways, as Charlie was talking about in the beginning, is really helping you navigate the new work landscape and options that you need to consider. You need to seriously consider these options. What business leaders, employees, and job seekers are saying. We also have an active search practice. We're not just HR consultants, and we are speaking with job seekers every day, and we are seeing a candidate market like I have never experienced in my 25 plus years doing this. What are industry leaders saying about the future of work? What should it look like, and how can you prepare for it? And most importantly, top 10 things you can ask yourself when deciding about your new workforce or new model, and how can you take this back to your world and truly apply it? That's really what's important here. So when we look at the landscape of our participants, we had something like 117 people register for this. It's very timely. So I'm actually going to ask a few questions because I want to understand the landscape out there. What worlds are you navigating? So Karina, if you want to pop on the first participant poll, and you should be able to, the audience, should be able to just pop in there and jump in and answer which one of those questions best describes your work environment over the last year. Are you remote? Has everybody been working remotely? Have you been on site? Really no change? Or has it been a hybrid of both? So we're seeing the numbers coming in now here. A lot of remote, a lot of hybrid. Good. Keep on coming in. Wow. This is very reflective of what we're seeing across all industries. This isn't unique to nonprofit. So it's very exciting to see that. This validates what I'm going to share with you today. All right, Karina, you want to pop on the next poll? So the next one is, there we go. Which of the following best describes your work pay? Oh, over the last year, we've seen this one. There we go. Attendees are now looking at this, so we want to make sure you see it properly. This is remote work in progress. If you have had people working, have you brought them back yet? So yes, all your people who are working remote have come back full time. Yes, some people who are working remotely have come back full time. Yes, some people who are working remotely have come back part-time. No one who has been working remotely has come back on site, or if it's just not applicable to you. And some of your organizations, we work with nonprofits as well, and some of them, they have caregivers, they have support workers, people have to be on site. So we understand that some of this might not be as applicable. But what we can see is that people that were remote are starting to come back. Okay. Not everybody's come back yet. Some are coming back, but majority here, what we're seeing is some people who are working remotely have come back on site part-time. Okay. All right, Karina, you can pop that off for me. Okay, so let me go back here. Before we start to really do the deep dive, what I want to do is to show you what's going on out there. And I've got a great video clip here to just watch for a couple of minutes. That is a great segue into what we're going to cover, over the next 45 minutes to an hour. So watch this first, because there are a lot of insights and details in here that you're going to hear as themes throughout the next 45 minutes to an hour.
Not work from home? It's the question a lot of businesses are starting to ask their employees as COVID cases continue to drop around the country and here in Idaho. We just heard from Joe on how Idaho is doing when it comes to employees, or employers, I should say. Do employees actually want to head back to work, into an office, in an enclosed space with others? And while there are some who are eager to do that, not everyone is missing that environment or that opportunity. So how has the change of location and the environment impacted mental health, and how should businesses take this into consideration going forward? Katya Stepovic spoke with a Meridian psychologist to find out.
My mental health is so much better working from home. There's so much time to do other things.
For some, the pandemic forcing a work from home schedule opened up a door of opportunities when it comes to a work-life balance.
Just being able to go on a walk after work. I'm not driving home for an hour every day. My mental stress is so much less.
Just being more present overall in the household and spending more time with your kids. I also think there's a benefit to working from home, because you're working longer generally. You stay logged on longer. You're not wasting that commuting time.
But there's no denying that when working from home, there's something missing.
Do you miss that aspect of working in the office in terms of collaborating during meetings and just that in the moment, popping by your cubicle?
One of the hardest parts of the pandemic was not being in the office with the coworkers. So it's been great to be back.
But not all of us actually miss it.
Still plenty of social interaction outside of work. And then work has just been kind of streamlined, more professional, less downtime, chatting by the water cooler, so to speak.
As Dr. Hoops, a psychiatrist for over 35 years, says humans need some kind of social interaction.
We are the most social beings in the universe. We need each other. We need to be around each other and be with each other.
But Dr. Hoops says there's no right or wrong when asking if working from home or in person is better for our mental health. But it comes down to what an individual's social requirements are, if you are an introvert or an extrovert. But one thing he does suggest is that business owners give their employees a choice before making a drastic change.
If you're a manager or a business owner, and not a direct manufacturer where somebody has to come in and actually put their hands on widgets to make them. I think it's going to be hard to hold good people if you insist on them all coming back. The best management is management that delegates and gives people the ability to make choices.
He goes on to suggest that businesses try to consider a type of hybrid model that best suits an employee's needs, because not all needs are the same.
I'm a people person, so it would be very hard for me just to be working behind a computer and not having that day-to-day interaction with people. So I just know that about myself.
I've loved the transition to working from home. I don't know how I would go back, to be honest.
I spoke to a development firm called BVA, and they tell me that yes, for the most part, even these bigger companies have really missed that in-person relationship. And so they hope to bring back that culture slowly but surely. But yes, a lot of these businesses are indeed exploring the option of offering a hybrid schedule for their employees. Brian?
All right, thank you very much, Katya. I can see maybe from here on out, maybe we do kind of a hybrid thing, because as we learned a lot during this pandemic, we don't always have to do things the exact same way we did before the pandemic. Thank you very much.
All right. So that's a lot of information to take in for sure. It's overwhelming. Everybody's head's probably exploding. This is what we're hearing. And even though this was from Idaho, it is representative of the country. We are hearing this from all different sectors, including nonprofit. So building onto all these various thoughts and insights, here's what we do know. So when you look at this one in particular, this is a Deloitte Return to Workplaces survey that they did in April 2021. And they surveyed 575 of their business leaders. And what this is basically showing, as you can see, is that 67% of those businesses were fully remote still as of April 2021. And yet 64% of them, almost the same, they are planning on bringing them all back sometime in 2021. So there's a lot to think about. What this means is that there were many people that were fully remote. Many are planning to come back, just like we saw in the polls that you all shared. And so many are going to be struggling with this same decision about what do we do. And again, I say, you're not alone in any of this. This is another one by Powerhouse McKinsey & Company. They are a consulting and research firm. This was a survey that they did called Reimagine Work. And they surveyed people from December 2020 to January 2021 that were working remotely as well. And there were about 5,000 people across the country that they surveyed. And what they're seeing here is pre-COVID versus current working models. And pre-COVID, as you can see, 62% were on site and only 30% were hybrid, and then only 8% were sitting remotely. Now, when you look at post-COVID, what people want and what they want to see happening is 52% of them are preferring a more flexible working model post-pandemic. So that means there's been a big shift in people wanting to be on site and people that are actually wanting to have some sort of a flexible working model. And that is overwhelmingly what we're hearing consistently as well. The next one here is Harvard Business School. So we always followed Harvard to see what they're doing. And this one was, I think, 1,500 professionals that they surveyed across the US who had been working remotely over the past year as well. And what I'm trying to show you is that there's validity here. We're hearing the same themes over and over again. Look at this number, 81% would prefer to not go back to the office at all, or they need some sort of a hybrid model. That's 81%. That's a tremendous amount of employees saying that. And also when you look at the other side of it here, 51% are uncomfortable going back unless they're vaccinated. 71%, almost 3/4 of the respondents will really not want to go back unless everybody at work is vaccinated. So that is a tremendous thing that you need to think about, is that there's a large majority that wants to stay hybrid or remote. And even if they do go back, they're feeling very anxious about their health and safety and the risk. So that's something that you're going to have to think about. Can we accommodate this? How are we going to make them feel safe and healthy if we're asking them to come back? So considering that there's already a mass exodus of people leaving organizations, we're seeing it every day with job candidates giving us resumes. They're still working for their organization, but they've been told that they're going back to work and they don't want to. So they're already seeking other opportunities. It's important that we understand this, because you may lose good people and you may have trouble attracting good people if we don't take these things to consideration. And again, needs have changed. People's priorities have changed. They've changed their lifestyles. People have moved to different locations to have a different lifestyle because they've been working remotely. In the state of Florida, where I am, 330,000 people moved here in the last year because of lifestyle choices. Being able to work remotely opens the door for them to live where they want to live. And as I said, the genie's out of the bottle. Can you get them back at this point? So these are all considerations. Let's look at the nonprofit world for a second here, because this is really important for you to see what's going on in your landscape. Looking at this, and I pulled this data from LinkedIn a couple of days ago, 32,000 plus remote jobs in the nonprofit sector in the US currently. 4,000 of them, over 4,000, are fairly new. So that would be in the last month or two. And what we're seeing is there's a combination of voluntary, part-time, full-time, and temporary roles in nonprofit that are saying remote, 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 remote. So what does this mean for you? It's here to stay. It's in your industry as well. You're not immune to this. And you're going to need to even rethink things like your voluntary workforce and what can be done to attract and retain your volunteers. Because I know working with nonprofits, a lot of your workforce for many nonprofits are volunteers. So how are we going to tap into the volunteers also? We look at this again back to Deloitte, and what we're seeing here is considerations for employers. 68% are considering implementing some kind of hybrid model. So they are struggling with these answers. We also see biggest concerns for employers being maintaining culture. 32% is the highest thing that's keeping them awake at night, is how do we maintain culture if we stay remote, if we stay hybrid, if we bring people back, can we stay true to the culture that we have enjoyed to date? Maintaining high performance is another one. How you evaluate and measure performance is different when people are working from home. We don't have them physically sitting with us every day to see how they're performing and to be able to give that coaching and guidance that they need. And then 19% was collaborating effectively. So are you thinking about these bucket items? Because other organizations are. And this is what's going to give you that advantage to also when you're retaining and attracting new people. We also look here at return to work employer health and safety priorities. So a few things to note. 66% are going to strongly encourage vaccinations, but only 1% in this survey said they're going to actually require them. But when you look over here, you know, what employers are saying also is that they're going to make sure that there are masks, there's social distancing, we enhance our safety protocols, health and safety protocols. These are the big ticket items for employers. So when you look back at this and you say, all right, if only 1% of employers are going to require vaccinations, but yet on a previous slide, we saw the survey respondents say that 71% of them really don't want to come back unless everyone is vaccinated. How do we bridge this? Because that's a big, big question you need to ask, and the pros and the cons of both sides of that equation. How are you going to make these decisions based on your workforce model, knowing all of this? And interesting to note in here, when I saw this, I'm actually surprised that we didn't see anything about mental health issues, because another thing that we're seeing is that there's a tremendous amount of mental health issues that have surfaced over the last year. People have social anxiety now. They're almost fearful of being around other people, just anxiety in general, being afraid of the unknown, not sure what's going to happen in the future. Am I going to get sick? They're worried about their health. They may have had family members affected or even possibly passed away because of COVID. So there's all these mental health issues on top of, you know, we need to make sure there's masks and there's social distancing. You have to think of the mental health side of this also. And how are you as an employer going to support people coming back, knowing that a lot of people really are struggling? So that's just one more thing to think about. And I know I'm overwhelming you and you're all saying, oh my God, stop, it's enough. But I will get to the point that it's all going to make sense and it will all start to come together. So bear with me here. So the next state that we're looking at here are benefits of remote work. So what are employees saying in this particular survey from FlexJobs? And FlexJobs has been a site that has been offering and facilitating flexible and remote jobs for years, but have gotten really popular over the last year, obviously. So the top 3 things that people are saying that are a tremendous benefit for them working from home is obviously number 1 is no commute. And this is a higher percentage for women than men. And that's obviously because still traditionally, no matter what everybody thinks or says, when you look at the studies and the research, women are still, you know, the caregivers in a lot of instances. So they're getting that time back with their children. They're able to do other things around the house that maybe they haven't. Men are saying this as well. 74%, they're getting that family time back. They're able to contribute more to the family than maybe they have before and be around their children and help with the chores and the laundry and all these other things that have to be done. So shared together, both men and women are rating this number one. So this is a critical thing to think about. Cost savings is another one. So obviously we look at here, not eating out. I don't have to pay gas prices, and gas is through the roof right now. So that's a huge benefit. Wear and tear on my vehicle, dry cleaning costs, all of these things that really add up when you're going into an office every day or a physical location. And then staying healthy. That's another one too, is that they're not being exposed to the virus. So that's their number three. So when you're thinking about this and you're considering reimagining your own workplace, what people's greatest benefits are working from home, how are you going to offset these things if you're asking them to come back or even come back part of the time? How are you going to offset some of these things? So that's something that you have to think about. And if you don't, like we saw in the video, you may start to lose good people and you might have a harder time attracting new people. Another one here, what employers are saying about connection and career development. This is really important. They've taken time over the last year to focus on developing their career. So they've used this opportunity, this extra time that they've had to read more for professional growth, continued their education, took online courses. And then on the other side of that is people, despite what we might hear, not everybody is feeling like they're not collaborating. Not everybody is feeling like they're disconnected, they're isolated, they're alone. People are still saying, hey, you know what? I am still collaborating with my teams. I'm still close to my leaders. I still have connection with my teams, and I'm still very productive. So again, going back to what we saw in the video, depending on the personalities of your team members also, they have different needs, and there are different places where those personalities will thrive. So make sure you understand that. And when you look at career development, people have been doing this themselves for the last year, but that has now changed their priorities and their needs and expectations coming back to you, that they're going to be looking to you to support this as well. Another one, this is on the positive side. People have developed healthy habits. So 59% made health a priority, 50% are reading for fun. People are sleeping better and even got a pet. They're spending time at home with their pets. This is something you need to also incorporate. So if you are having people come back to work and traditionally maybe you only had vending machines with chips and soda and chocolate bars, people are saying, hey, you know what? I've been eating healthy over the last year. Maybe you need to revisit what you're going to be serving them or offering them. So these are the kinds of things that you have to think, okay, they've been doing this for a year. What do we want to continue to help them with? On the other side of that coin, though, is that people have developed some negative or unhealthy habits over the last year. So 1 in 3 people have started drinking alcohol more, 31% are taking more recreational drugs, and then 1 in 3 have gained weight. So going back to you reimagining what this is going to look like for you moving forward, are you prepared to support people coming back as they've developed some of these unhealthy habits? Are you going to offer wellness support, health and fitness types of support for them, maybe addiction or cessation support for some of these things that might be really challenging them in their lives? So this is what has also transpired over the last year. Looking at this is clear that most companies have not communicated a vision for their post-pandemic plan. 40% are saying that they have not done this yet. And there's a direct correlation between them not communicating and their people feeling very anxious about it. So 40% of people are saying, you know what, this lack of clear vision or any kind of a communication plan forward from my leadership team is causing me great concern and great anxiety. And anxiety obviously is really well connected to people being disengaged, people leaving organizations, absenteeism rates, using their benefits program a little bit more. They're accessing some of the things that they may not have had to deal with some of the anxiety related issues that they're having, affects morale organizationally, on and on. So the takeaway here is employees want and need to know what the plan is. Even if you don't have the full plan, that's okay. Be transparent and let them know what you're working on and what is the plan forward. Shut this fear down that they have, this fear and anxiety. Oops, there we go. When we look at what industry experts and business leaders are saying, you're going to see these themes emerging, and I'm not going to go through every one. The PowerPoint will be made available to you. This will be recorded so you can go back to it. But what we're seeing is tons of consistency from business leaders like yourselves, organizational leaders, HR leaders, consultants. Ramping up technology is going to be critical. A few other things. Knowing what your people want and need is absolutely critical. Reimagining how work is done like you've never done before. Leadership is going to make or break this for you. Business is no longer business as usual. It cannot be. And being flexible and giving choice to your people is really what people are looking at moving forward. On the other side of that, what we're hearing from employees, we actually interact with a lot of employees at the organizations that we are supporting on a daily basis. So we're hearing this from people as well as the job seekers, that we want more technology, we want to stay connected, I want to try and automate things that I'm doing because I've been doing it for the last year. We want flexibility and choice. I want to be asked, I want to be heard by my employer so they understand my needs and what's going to work best for me, where I'm going to thrive. I need to know the plan, obviously. And we're not the same as we were before. Our expectations have changed. My priorities have changed. What, was a priority for me a year ago may not be a priority anymore. So they need to be heard. There's a lot of things in here that need to be considered. So what's this all really telling us? This is the biggest part of all of this is what are your options here? So as you've heard, hybrid is an option, having people remote and not remote, giving people that flexibility, the choice to manage themselves more autonomously if they choose to, or being full-time in the office or being full-time at your locations or being full-time remote. These are really the three choices that you're going to have to make. And again, independence, flexibility, and choice is critical. You have to consider the lifestyle changes that people have made and their priorities that have shifted, their values now, expectations. And then also you need to actively engage your stakeholders, your employees and your other stakeholders. So if you've got board members, if you have external parties that are stakeholders, your senior leaders, middle leaders, anybody that's considered a stakeholder in this decision or these decisions need to be engaged. You've got to have a great change management type of a plan, something to help you manage all of this change so that it's smooth and seamless and not so painful for everyone. And communication is absolutely critical. So when we look at engagement levels, and I just want to pop this up here for a second, what's really important to know, we've mapped Maslow's hierarchy of needs against what we call our engagement pyramid. We do a lot of work around engagement and culture building. What this means is when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, down here at the bottom, physiological needs, security needs, people essentially need these things satisfied before they can move up the pyramid and be actively engaged, highly engaged. So if you're not satisfying people's needs, for instance, to feel safe and healthy at work, they're still going to be stuck down here. And those folks are going to be not engaged or actively disengaged, possibly. And that's a whole challenge right there. If you can move them past this and start to satisfy some of the basic needs and expectations and priorities that they now have, you can start to move them up the engagement pyramid. So that's what really is important, is that they, if they're not getting those bottom basic fundamental needs satisfied in the new world, they just cannot keep moving forward and become highly engaged at the end of the day. So 10 things to think about, and this kind of sums it all up for us, really, when you're looking at it. And this isn't in any particular order. This is just a great way to say, what are the top 10 biggest ticket items that we need to be thinking about as leaders out there and influencers in our organizations? So the first thing, and this is not in any particular order, is workforce planning. So some questions, and I won't go through each one, but some questions you want to think about is looking at every single position, and I realize this is daunting, but it's an exercise that absolutely has to take place. Can work be done remotely? And that's very, very broad. So you're going to need to funnel it down to each of your operational areas, the positions in those areas, to figure out what can and can't be done remotely, and what has worked for us over the past year remotely, and what we've been struggling with and we need to bring it back in-house. What elements of a position can be performed remotely? So maybe the job can be performed remotely part of the time, but some of the time they're going to have to come in and do the work. And do we even have internal expertise in workforce planning? A lot of organizations have never had to really sit down and strategically do workforce planning. So you need to know if you've even got your internal resources able to help you with this, or if you need to look outside the organization for support. The next thing is the legal landscape has changed. We are, as I said, in uncharted territory on so many different legal levels. It's absolutely overwhelming for me. I get input every day, data, new information from the SHRM Association, which is the Society for HR Management in the US, and it is changing daily, the legal landscape. So it's hard to keep up. So some questions to ask: what should we be thinking about? Do we have the legal expertise to keep us on the right path? Are we prepared to bring people back? What are the legal risks, pros and cons, visitors coming in? What policies might need to change because of this? And then what are the legal ramifications of that? So understand your legal landscape has changed. Stakeholder engagement. This is critical to your success. So who are our critical stakeholders? It's even identifying them. Who needs to be engaged in these decisions? How can we answer the questions that they have? How can we get to the position that they have? Do we consider their buy-in at all? And employees are stakeholders also. Understanding what your people want and need. What do they think the best way to do their work is? What's working for them and what isn't working for them? Do you understand all of these different dynamics going on? Personalities, generations, some are parents, some are caregivers, some are single, some are married, commuters, non-commuters. You've got different markets. You may be operating in different states and the landscape is different. You know, if you have people working in Manhattan versus working in Idaho somewhere, how is that going to affect how you're going to map out your new world? So these are the things you need to understand. The next one is capabilities. Do we even have the capabilities to support the decisions that we're making? Do we have technological capabilities to support this type of workforce going forward, or this model? Do we have the physical space that we need? Can we reconfigure workspaces so that maybe they're not cubicles anymore, they're collaboration spaces, because that's the only time we're going to bring people together? And are our operational leaders and HR leaders properly equipped, trained, developed, aware, skilled in leading remote and hybrid teams? Over the past year, we have done a tremendous amount of work with leadership teams, helping them strengthen and fuel their ability to lead this diverse landscape of hybrid teams. So this is something else you need to think about. Reinventing yourselves. How will decisions about how, when we do our work affect policies that you have? What are you going to start doing, stop doing, keep doing, and what can be done differently? Talent acquisition. I can't say this enough. This is one of the key critical factors in your decision making. If you make some decisions about talent, will it strengthen or weaken your position as an employer? How are they going to view you from the external world? Understanding your candidate market. If you've got millennials and Gen Zs, they have different needs than people that are baby boomers or even Gen Xers like myself. So you need to understand what your candidate market wants. And is your name, your purpose, your mission, and your history enough anymore? We've seen a lot of people turning down Apple, Disney struggling to find workers. Your name and your history is not enough anymore because people's priorities have changed and their needs. The other side of that is retaining your people. So same thing down here. Are you enough to keep them? How replaceable are they? And if we lose talent, is this talent going to be replaceable? So think about this with all of the decisions that you're making about bringing people back. Cost risk analysis. This is critical to do. Make sure you understand the pros, the cons, the risks, the costs, the benefits of all of the different options that you come up with and surface. How much space do you really need? Is it going to cost us? Can we use WeWork space across the country instead of, renting or leasing space? And then other operational costs, vending machines, water coolers, all of these things that cost money. Your core values. Don't ever lose sight of your core. And because you're in the nonprofit sector, you have a very compelling mission. Your values are very compelling, and that's a huge draw. So don't lose sight of that and understand that the decisions you're making may or may not align with those values. So always use your values as your compass. They are your navigator and will help you. Do your decisions have soul? The soul are the people of your organization. They are your soul. Are you making decisions using soul? And then do we really incorporate and understand the diversity we have and the different needs and the different personalities and generations and all of these things we talked about? So it really starts with you as a leader. I mean, when you look at it, think bigger. You have to think bigger as a leader because you can't just think in silos, personal agendas, this is about me. You have to think about the organization and your people. Know what they want and need and respond accordingly. This is critical. We need to make sure that they are heard and you're prepared to do something with that information. Lean on each other for support and ideas. That's why you have this group through NLC. You've got tremendous strength in the room. So tap into it, leverage it, and find out what other people are doing in your industry. Facilitate your team's effectiveness and overall performance. You are the guides, you are the coaches and the facilitators. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Can't say that enough. Be agile. We say emotional intelligence is the basis of any good, effective leader, is being self-aware. Understand your own strengths and opportunities. Be self-regulating. Be aware of the personalities of others on your team and effectively manage those interactions and address the needs as you need to see them. So wrapping it up and bringing it back, what we're seeing here is, most importantly, this is what's going to be great to share with your organization. And it looks so simple. It's not that simple. We know it's very daunting. We're doing this ourselves. But when you break it down and you kind of compartmentalize it into buckets like this, it makes it so much easier. So when you are looking at how do I possibly face these decisions, you start with awareness. Generate the insights. Start there. Gather your stakeholder insights. Survey them. Poll them. What do they think? Where are their hotspots? What are they going to stick on? Where are they going to hesitate? Gather your employee insights. This is critical to understand the needs of your people. And then identify them, call them out, partner with HR or external consultants like us if you need the support. Step 2, you move on to analyzing. So now we've gathered the insights. We know what we're dealing with. Now we need to analyze and start to break them down. So identifying options, needs, expectations, rating the importance of each criteria item, because there may be different importance and weighting placed on them by the different stakeholders. Understanding everyone's position, all of your stakeholder positions, and where are the tension points there. Call them out. It's okay to have that healthy conflict and healthy, debating. Identify the pros and cons of each option and then rank order criteria. Do it with sticky notes or whiteboarding, whatever methodology that you use in your organization to blue sky think and then help you funnel things down to decision. The third step is action. So identify possible solutions. What are the solutions? So we've got 1, 2, 3 choices we can go with. Use decision-making tools. There is a ton of software out there, decision tree. There's a million different types of software you can use to help you make these decisions. You don't have to just look at it, broad. Bundle competing criteria in a few alternatives that will generate or yield the best responses or impact. So if you've got different stakeholders and they all value different things, you can still bundle solutions and options so that everybody gets a little bit of what they want, but they may not get everything that they want. And then you come up with that best solution. Develop it and communicate the plan. Always align with your core. Go back to who you are. Does this make sense? Does this absolutely align, or does it misalign with our core values and who we say we are and our compelling purpose out there in the world? and apply a change management methodology. And none of this has to be super complicated. There's a lot of great change management models out there that are actually quite simplistic. It breaks things down into bite-sized chunks to help you get there and manage the change effectively. Because where we find a lot of organizations drop the ball is that they make all these great plans, they make decisions, but they don't effectively manage the change. And it is an epic fail. So this is a tremendous opportunity to get it right. Talking about getting it right, step 4 is achievement. So you're always going back and looking at what have we accomplished? Was it the right decision? Do we need to tweak it? It may not be right. Our mantra here at HR Soul is progress over perfection. And I know that gives people hives when they hear that. It's, oh, it has to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is new territory for all of us. So progress is more important right now than getting it perfect. You can always go back and revisit it. And we encourage you to do that. Go back, quarterly, halfway through the year, and revisit it. Resurvey your stakeholders. Is what we implemented working? If it's not, why? What has possibly changed in the last 6 months that will impact these factors that are going into the decisions that we're making? And course correct as needed. Good organizations have no problem calling out where they failed. They learn from it. That's how they grow. And it creates trust and credibility and respect with your employees. So it's okay to say, you know what? 6 months ago, this was the landscape and we made these decisions based on this. We've talked to you guys. We've talked to our stakeholders. Things have changed in our world. And now we need to course correct. And that's okay. It's a sign of strength, especially as leaders. And then develop and re-communicate your new plan. So that's critical also. And down here, when we say critical success factors, we use this simple 4H model. It's so easy. And this should really resonate with you guys as nonprofit. The terms alone should really resonate with you. So when you're looking at creating and reimagining your world, be human, be humble, be hungry, be heroic. What do we mean? We mean in be human, be authentic, be real, be vulnerable, lead with empathy, build those relationships. Be humble, develop your self-awareness and do something with that self-awareness. Leverage it and make the interactions you have count. Be hungry. This one is a little bit, people say, what does that mean? It means ensuring clarity and accountability. That's what it does. So when you've developed the plans, you've started to roll them out, you're communicating them out there, hold people accountable for things. Have open, honest conversations. It's productive. It's meaningful for people. Clear and timely decisions is part of being hungry. Get it done. And then be heroic is ensuring that you have shared values and purpose. This is critical across your organization. Everyone needs to have that critical buy-in to be engaged, to be successful, and to perform at a level that you need them to moving forward. Clarify and define goals, and then also value and measure the performance, the team performance, the organizational performance. So always have your metrics in place. It's simple, it's relatable, and hopefully for you guys that resonates with you. So a few final words. Oops, we're wobbling here. Before we wrap up, before we jump to questions, is, in essence, take a couple of minutes to really think about at least one, even if you just walk away with one key insight, something that is really powerful that you may have not thought of before from today's webinar that you can share when you go back to your world. That is my goal, is that you at least take something from this that is applicable that you can take back to your worlds and actually really put it into action and have the impact that you're looking for. We have a very unique opportunity right now, like never before in time, in the history of ever, to define our new normal. So make it intentional, make it purposeful, make it positive, and make it impactful. It needs to be something that you are dedicating a lot of time, energy, and focus on for all of the reasons that we just talked about. If you need some support moving forward, you've always got the team at NLC. They are super supportive. I love working with you guys. You really are special. And I don't say that to everybody. You know, I think that your purpose, your mission, what you're giving back to this group is just so amazing. And it's just so rewarding to be part of your extended family. So thank you for that again. So you've always got Charlie, Karina's there also. You've got the email and their phone number. And then mine is up here as well. You can also look up my website anytime. It's www.hrsoul.com. Super easy. And now, you know, if you have to jump off, we're going to go to some questions. We have a bit of time. If you do need to jump off now, I want to thank you so much for hanging in there with us. I know it's overwhelming. I know this is very daunting, but it doesn't have to be. And we can make this so much easier for you just sharing the information that we've shared today. So I'm really hoping that everyone has an awesome day. But if you can hang in with us, and we did get some questions, I'm going to bounce it over to Karina, and we'll go from there. And if I can't get all the questions answered, we will make sure that they come back to you sometime following this webinar. So thank you, everyone. Karina?
Thank you so much, Andrea, for that wonderful presentation. As a staff member at an organization going through these processes, it was some really interesting, enlightening information. So everybody, we've got about 7 or 8 minutes for questions. We do have one question in the chat box. So if you have a question, please type it in the chat box. Okay. So the question we have in the chat box right now is from Diane Clark. Diane asks, has anyone surveyed to see if salary differential for those in office versus out of office is needed?
That's a really good question, Diane. Thank you for that. There have been some research studies done on that specifically. And certainly when we talk to the candidate world, this is coming into play. And also when you think about people that weren't commuting, but now are commuting or being asked to commute again, these are things that we're going to have to consider as we move forward. And one of the slides that I showed you did say you may need to rethink your total rewards program, because throwing money at people sometimes to attract them or keep them isn't necessarily going to be the magic bullet anymore. So you may have to get very creative in your total rewards program. And that's certainly what we've been experiencing with our own clients, is they're reimagining what that looks like. So as for specific research studies, I'm not sure because I haven't pulled that data myself, but I am seeing it across the industry that we are going to have to revisit that as well. Great question.
Thank you, Andrea. So there was a sort of tack-on question from Mariana that asked, and I think you spoke to this maybe a bit, different benefits for in-person versus virtual employees.
Right, absolutely. And again, it's this whole notion of one size doesn't fit all anymore is very hard to grapple with, because I came from, HR school 1,000 years ago that basically said that you treat everybody the same and everybody gets the same benefits package and everything, everything has to be consistent. We don't want to set precedents and pick and choose. Well, from what we're hearing and seeing out there in the industry, that has to be reimagined as well, because you've got different needs of people at home than you do people coming into the office. For instance, people that are working remotely, they don't need any commuter benefits. And a lot of organizations actually are offering commuter benefits. They've been doing this for a long time as an incentive to people that do have to commute in. So this may be something that, okay, commuter benefits are going to be something that we are layering on to people who are being asked to come in, whereas people at home don't need that. There's other things that they may have to reconsider as far as benefits go. I'm just trying to think of some of the ones that I saw recently. Definitely the commuter benefits is a big one. There was another one around wellness or fitness. That's another area that we may have to rethink, because as you saw, people have started to change their lifestyle and they're going to be looking to their employers to share in that new lifestyle. So it's kind of a two-way relationship there, even though a lot of employers say, that's not my responsibility. Well, if you have that mindset, you may lose that person. So it's now something that you have to rethink, even though you may have never had to think about this before. So I think that the need for benefits consultants is going to increase significantly, comp and benefits consultants, as well as, HR strategy. So that is definitely something that you're going to have to reimagine and re-explore for sure. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Andrea. So I have a question while we wait for anybody else to ask into the chat. I'm curious if you could speak more to, in the face of resistance, how might you gain buy-in from key stakeholders?
Mm-hmm. And that's a really good question. I kind of talked about that on one of the other slides a little bit without going into a ton of detail, is the process and the methodology that you're using. So engaging your key stakeholders, identifying who they are, first of all, is number one. Number two is also understanding not only your stakeholders, but who are your greatest advocates and who are your greatest adversaries? Who are the resistant people going to be? Because you want to pull them into that engagement process as well and understand their perspective so you can start to deal with the resistance up front. Part of the process of calling out and decision making also showed that you do need to get those tension points out there. So everyone who's a stakeholder has an opportunity to talk about what their tension points are. And then, okay, what are the pros and the cons? What's the reality around these tension points? So the more that you involve your stakeholders, the less resistant they're going to be because they were part of the decision-making process. It's hard for them to say, I didn't agree with that, or I think this is stupid, or we shouldn't do it, if they've been involved and they've had a say in it along the way. They may not get exactly what they want, but they're going to get some of what they want through that process. And that's really how you gain that buy-in from them. Good question.
All right, well, we're getting pretty close to 3 o'clock and I'm not seeing any additional questions in the chat.
Okay.
So I would just like to say, Andrea, thank you again so much for sharing this incredibly informative and timely presentation. Thank you to everybody that participated today. We'll be sharing the recording and presentation handouts within the next week. Please reach out to us if you have any questions. Keep your eyes out for our upcoming webinars. Have a great afternoon. Any final words, Andrea?
No, I've just been thrilled to be here, and I'm so excited to be in front of all these great people on this awesome mission and purpose that you have out there. I love working with the nonprofit organizations. It's a special place to be for sure. So keep doing what you're doing out there. You're making a huge difference in the world. And thank you again for your time, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.